the poor will make heaven. I said, I don't think the Pope believes that. And I said, look at the wealth here. Listen, with my own eyes. You know that St. Peter's Basilica, the front of it is quite big, huh? If you go inside, as I have, on the inside, Pastor, on the inside, oh my goodness, bigger, much wider than this wall is a painting by Michelangelo. Just one painting that fills the entire area. It goes way higher than even this ceiling. I said to Peter, I said, this one painting of Michelangelo will support my ministry for 1,000 years. I said, the Pope does not believe in poverty. I said, that painting by itself will support my ministry for 1,000 years. And you see such elegance in the Vatican, such beauty. I walked in the gardens of the Vatican. I've walked in the museum by myself. I've been able to, I even stood on the balcony. They at one time I went back. I went into the papal apartments. I saw even the clothing. They took me to the kitchen. I even held the scepter. I've been able to inside the Vatican. And I said to Peter, I said, Peter, the Pope believes in prosperity. He said, absolutely. So I'm here to tell you, if you are Catholic growing up like me, there's no such thing as only the poor will make heaven. Now, I know the Word of God very well about this, but one day, Oral Roberts came, and God used him to really open my understanding even more. So I'm taking the offering one Sunday morning. Almost 3,000 people in the building. And I took the tithe and offerings as the pastor of the church, OCC. And Oral is sitting behind me the whole time. He preached the service. After the service, he says, Benny, can I talk to you like my son? I said, of course. He said, you take lousy offerings. I said, why would you say that? He said, because you focused on the seed while Jesus focuses on the harvest. And then he opened his Bible and he said, read Luke 6:38. I'm sitting with him in the back in the green room, and his Bible is open and my Bible is open, and he has me read it out loud. So I read, give, it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall man give to your bosom. He said, how many times, and please keep it on the screen. He said, how many times did Jesus say give? I said, one time. How many times did he say receive? I said, I don't know. He said, read it again. I read it again. It shall be given unto you. Good measure, all that. And he said, how many times did Jesus say receive? I said, I don't know. He said, read it again. And I read it again. And then he did this. He said, give me your hand. So I put my hand out like that. Give me your hand. And he began pulling my fingers. Come up, come here. Yeah, he says, oh Lord, oh Lord. So Oral takes my fingers and he says, Jesus spoke of the harvest 7 times. It shall be given. Don't do that. Unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall man give. I said, do it again. And he did it a second time. It shall be given. Read that thing there. It shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall man give. I said, my goodness, I never saw that. He said, focus on the harvest, because Jesus focused on the harvest. And then, he said, what do you want financially from God? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, why don't you know? I said, because I never thought about it. He said, well, you ask God for other things. You ask him for things to do with your family or your health or this or that. Have you ever told God that you need financial blessings? I said, no. Then he said, what is it you want? And we just bought a house for $300,000. And my wife and I wanted to pay the house off. So I said, well, and I called him Doc, doctor for Doc. I said, well, Doc, I said, we just bought a house, and my wife and I want to be able to pay the house off. He said, tell the Lord that. Well, I never told God things like that. I was too afraid to talk about money with the Lord, you know. So he convinced me that God is interested to know my financial need. I said, okay, I'll pray. He said, no. He said, you tell your whole congregation what I told you. He said, the next Sunday, you ask them the same question. And you tell them the same thing I told you today. Focus on the harvest. I did. And then he told me something that was a little scary for me. He said, tell your congregation to tell God what they want financially. And write it on the back of the envelope. I said, why should I write it on the back? Well, he said, when you pass the offering bags and the people have the envelopes, have them write down what they want from God financially. I said, why? He said, because it will double their faith. I said, say it again. He said, when you write it down, it doubles your expectation. You don't just say it, you write it down. So I wrote on the envelope, Lord, help me pay off my house. And I told the whole place to do the same thing, reluctantly. To my shock, they all did it. They all wrote on the back what they wanted. Somebody wanted a car or a house or this. And I did not believe it yet. When I did it, I wasn't sure if this was really biblical. But Oral Roberts, you know, he's a big man of God. I thought, well, he should know better than me. So I believed him, reluctantly at first. And for 6 months I did it. For 6 months. Every Sunday morning, the whole church and I would write down, Lord, and we would say whatever we wanted financially. Let me finish. The Lord one day said, do you believe it? I said, yes, I do, because I did by then. I had to. He said, praise me for it. So I wrote, Lord, I praise you. My house is paid. It wasn't paid yet, but I wrote, Lord, I praise you. The house is paid. And I put the offering in. A man named Emil Tannis from Fort Myers, Florida, had just sold his garbage business. Began to attend our church. He's my witness, it happened. His wife, Joyce, her hair went up like the Eiffel Tower. Blonde hair that went up like that. And on the top of her hair was a piece of jewelry that would swing like that. She had rings on every finger. Jim, come here so they know I'm not lying to him. Pastor, that woman had a ring on every finger. And she had this hair that went way up like that.
Yes, sir.
With a big jewelry right here.
Yes.
We
called her Mrs. Got Rocks.
We called her Mrs. God Rock.
Because she had rocks like diamonds that were huge.
Diamonds were huge all over. And I said to one day, I said, Joyce, if you ever go swimming, you'll drown. Because that's what he means by I have no filter. I told her she'll drown. Why must I not? Why would I not tell that? No, she's not dead. She's still alive. She's probably watching. Anyways, her husband called me, said, listen. He said, we want to take you out for dinner. So we went to dinner. And then he said, the Lord spoke to my wife and I to give you a check. And he hands me $300,000. And I said, why? He said, because God told us to give it to you. It was the exact amount for the house. And then he said, is it enough? And I was crying, and I said, yeah, but then I wanted to go back there and say, no, give it a little more, but I didn't do that. But I was reluctant to receive it. I'll tell you now, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. Dan, you're going to love this. Pastor, you're going to love this. I was reluctant to accept that envelope because about a few months before, there was a lady in our church Grace Moss was her name. She was 95 years old, and she was in love with me. Am I right, Jim? I am right.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Tell him, am I?
It's true. Absolutely.
That woman wanted to